All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is another episode of the Darwin Awards from the Professional Triers. I'm Vinny. It is so good. I love these episodes. These are so fun. And it is just as much fun for me to plan these episodes. When I talk to all the different people about, like, okay, what dumb shit have you done? And I get to talk to them and I get to hear the stories. I'm like, yep, come on, you're going to be on an episode. And here we are in the next episode. And I am excited for this episode because not only is he an epic guy, he had an epic fail. And I cannot wait to hear this story. Hello, Mr. Lee Lindquist.
Hey, Vinny, how's it going?
It is awesome. And you have got a guest with you as well. Who is this?
Yeah, this is Mike Ross. He's been with me for probably, I don't know, almost 10 years
Yeah,
or so.
It's almost 10 years since you really got affiliated with the Lights at Botanica here in Wichita. So,
yeah,
it's been a long time.
We put a lot of stuff together and had many days of construction and destruction over the years, and we do a lot of work together out at Botanica here in Wichita.
Awesome. So in 10 years, you guys are both co-workers and friends?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Awesome. I got to turn this heater off behind me. It is getting toasty in my little office. Woo! So in 10 years, you guys have worked together, been friends. And so, Mike, do you do Christmas lights at all outside of Botanica?
I decorate my home kind of in your, 1950s traditional wreaths and just still lights. I really only got to know about the programming world and the world of animation since I started hanging out with Lee, 8-10 years ago. But yeah, I love Christmas lights. I love everything about them, and I've learned a lot from this guy, but I've also learned that, sometimes you fly too close to the sun as well, and the wax in your wings melts and you come plummeting to earth. So yes, but yes, I love it. And, but I'm not nowhere in his league as far as design and programming is concerned.
I think very few people are in his league when it comes to the overall knowledge base of this stuff. Very few people are, which is wonderful that I gave him that compliment now, which is a completely true compliment. But we're going to use this opportunity. You and I are going to bring him down a peg. We are going to hear the story of this epic failure, and then I'm going to enjoy teasing him about it. And like I said, to be fair, whenever possible, I will come up with stories when I have also epically failed at something and allow you to equally tease me back. It's only right. So, okay, should we get this started?
Let's just
okay.
Let's do it.
So
I try to block it out of my memory, but here we go.
Here we go. So for the YouTube viewers, I'm going to share some screenshots. So you're not going to see us as much anymore. You're going to see pictures. We have like a slideshow ready to go, so you can see images of this structure that we're talking about. But for our podcast listeners, we are going to do our best to describe what you're looking at as well. So here we go. We're going to get started. I'm going to screen share this. Lee, I'm going to let you take over. And first tell us what you built, how you built it, and what the intent was supposed to be.
Sure.
All right. Here we go. There's the picture.
Okay. So this was, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. I need to look up exactly the date. But I wanted to build, this is P5, P10 matrices. I wanted to build a giant RGB LED screen that we could show video and images and other effects on. And to give you an idea of the scale, there are 10 vertical panels that are lined up horizontally. Each panel is about 4 feet wide by about 21 feet long. So this structure is about 40 by 21 feet rectangular. It's kind of a 4:3 aspect ratio.
So 40 feet wide, 21 feet tall.
Yep.
Wow.
And, yeah, I built it. It was all, I had a friend of mine design the steel support structure. And then what you can't see in this picture is this is all RGB LED strip that was attached to the individual rods on here. So what we've got, yeah, there's a better picture of it on the trailer here. So it is 1/2-inch steel tubing, and then on each one of those 1/2-inch steel tubes, we had the RGB LED strip with the adhesive on the back of it. Attached to the strip. I'm gonna let my dog out here.
Oh my word!
So I can see in this picture.
But BTW, those things are not light.
So each of these panels, I mean, God, it probably, because we could, so the ends are hinged and they attach down to like a 4x4 square tubing rail on the bottom. And so we could build the rail, attach the rail to the ground with these little tripod pieces, and then each of the tripods was staked into the ground. And then the panels could fold up. So we had a boom lift that we were using to actually raise the panels up vertically. And even with the one end of it attached to the bottom rail, I mean, it took 2 people to lift the panels up. So the panel by itself, I'm guessing each panel before you add all the LEDs and cabling and everything else, power injection, was probably 300 pounds.
Oh, easily.
200 to 300 pounds.
4 people had it. 4 people was, you were on the edge of discomfort.
Yeah, just carrying it was about a 4-person job. And there were, like I said, 10 of these panels that got attached to this bottom rail and then all lifted up with a boom lift.
So you put a lot of effort into not just the construction of this, but the engineering of it, of how it was going to be designed to survive. We
thought that we were going to reuse and assemble and disassemble this thing several times. And yeah, the effort that went into it. So all of these strips were all lined up perfectly. We used the built-in adhesive, attached it down to the rail in a perfectly straight manner, and then we zip tied it as well to make sure that it wasn't going to come off, and to make sure that it was all even. So yeah, the quality of work that we put into this was pretty high. I mean, we had a lot of labor, a lot of volunteers come out, help us put this thing together. And it was, I want to say the pixel resolution, I think it was 320 pixels wide, because it was 10 panels at 32 strips apiece. That's right. It was 320 by, I believe, 180 or whatever that works out to be. It was a 4:3 aspect ratio on the screen. So was it 4:3 or 6? I can't remember. But it was 320 wide, and then I believe it was like 180 tall pixels. So it was 57,000 something pixels total. And this was 5-ish years ago. It was quite a thing.
57,000 something pixels.
Yep.
On this matrix.
Yep.
Jeez, Louis. 57,000 pixels, give or take, somewhere in there we're ballparking. 40 feet wide, 21 feet tall. And I'm just looking at this picture with all the controllers. It looks like 25-ish, 28 maybe controllers. Yeah. Hard to count, but.
Yeah, each panel had 2 16 output controllers plus a third box that had 2 additional power supplies in it. So there were 30 boxes down there on the ground with controllers and power supplies, CG 1500 boxes.
So there were 10 of these panels, you said, right?
Yep, 10 panels.
And there's 32 outputs per channel.
32 outputs per panel, right? Yep.
So 320 outputs.
Correct.
To build this thing.
The heat shrinked, yeah, all of that. Yeah, because this was before like you could not buy Pixel Strip with XConnect or Raywu style connectors. These all had JST plugs on them, so they all had to be cut off, soldered, heat shrinked, put back together. We had a whole crew of volunteers that all they did was strip and solder and heat shrink stuff together for days. I mean, 320 of them. We had to do them all.
So this is truly an epic project. This thing is fantastic. God, I really hope people get the chance to watch this episode on YouTube as well, so that they can see. Here is another picture of it fully built.
Yep. And of course, this is all 5-volt as well, because I don't know if 12-volt strip was available, and if it was available, I think there were some issues with it getting that linked. So this all has power injection also. So we had to run. We couldn't just power it from the bottom. We had to run power all the way to the top of the panels and then back down. So I think in one of the other You
and
see
because
some-
it was 5 volts, so you can't go that far with it, and
Right.
it strips, so you can't go up and come back down to where
Right.
you can power inject at the back end. You had to run wires up the 21 feet and
Yep.
power inject from the top coming back down.
Correct. Yep.
Wow. See, this is just.
And Vinny, you don't even get the rigidity of these things. This was like steel, and where the strips were connected, just a zip tie between those gaps. It was the most laborious, painstaking. Your fingers would get caught up in it. I mean, it was a freaking mess, man. It was just an absolute mess.
We had probably
Oh.
I mean at least 10,000 zip ties. It was probably more when it was all said and done, because we zip tied it every like 5 or 6 inches. So yeah, there's a lot of zip ties on the thing, a lot of wire, a lot of pigtails, a lot of controllers, and yeah, it was something.
Oh, this is so wonderful. Okay.
Well, the sheer weight of it too, I just can't even. I mean, when you saw that picture of the boom, those are on a hinge, and there was no like safety stop if they went above, past
Past center.
I mean, so it's like, we had to like, have people stand there, say, hey, no one walk in there. It's a death zone. Don't come in this way. If something goes horribly wrong, you'll get, hammered into the ground like a nail, like in the cartoons of old. I mean, it was just, oh God.
We did have some decent engineering thought on it, though, at least, as you can see in this picture. So there's a railing along the bottom that supports all the weight, and then we built these triangular posts that go along the rail to support and distribute the weight on the ground. And then on the back side, there's a diagonal brace that comes down that attaches to another triangular post in the ground. So the weight is well distributed, and the forces are all kind of balanced. So we can tilt the screen backwards a little bit and put some of the weight along the back. So I mean, we did do some decent effort in trying to make it modular, so every panel was the same. You could put the panels back in any orientation, and theoretically you could take one panel down and work on it and put it back up. The biggest problem that we ran into is we did not really appreciate the weight. We did calculate what it would weigh before we started building the whole thing, but we did not appreciate how difficult it actually was manipulating each one of these panels at 200 plus pounds. So in hindsight, doing it again, I would definitely have maybe shrunk it a little bit to where each panel was a little bit smaller, probably made it out of aluminum instead of steel, just to cut maybe another 20 or 30% out of the weight, and then just come up with a better way of erecting it, putting it together, because I don't like the idea of requiring a boom lift or something to get it all put up. I think it would really be nice to be able to do it all by hand. I don't like requiring any heavy equipment for any of the stuff that we do.
So I'm going to show you a picture here, and here, let me. Oops.
And we haven't even gotten into really why it failed yet. But
so you see this photo here?
Oh yeah.
I had a similar concept. So you can make fun of me for this later, except that this really never was an epic. This really never failed, other than the fact that I used, pixel strips, which you can see here. This was after year 1. It went great. In year 2, I had to replace these 2-hole strips.
Yep.
But same concept of square tubing. I put it down, use zip ties about every 12 inches, keep them straight. So this was a great design, and you can see it's angular. Then I had cross members in here about every 4 foot up. So it was a 20-foot tall and 16-foot tall, whatever it was. I don't remember. And mounted basically to the side of the house, and it all held together in one structure. It was, because I used aluminum square tubing. Tink, 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 tink. This thing actually probably only weighed maybe 40 pounds.
Yeah.
This whole structure. It took 2 people to haul it around just because it was so big, but it wasn't heavy. It was great. So I had a similar design.
The lighter way. So
okay. So now, is there anything else that you want to say about the structure and its design?
Yeah. So one thing that I think, and we haven't really talked about how it failed or why it failed, but one thing that I think contributed to the failure is you don't really appreciate how much something like that can still flex. I mean, it was very, very rigid, but each one of those panels, and in one of the pictures there, you can kind of see where when we had the panels supported by the two ends, it would bow a little bit in the middle. And that, I think, contributed to part of the problem that we had with the Pixel Strip, because, you know, Strip hates being bent, especially sideways, and it also hates being stretched. That layer of copper along that flexible PCB is very, very thin. So if it twists or stretches or flexes in any way that it doesn't like, it's going to break that solder connection on that WS2812B, or, you know, anywhere else where you've got a solder connection. It's going to break that connection there. And then, just like any other Pixel thing, everything downstream of that is going to quit working. And we didn't really appreciate how fragile the Pixel Strip was. And when we were assembling it, we tried to have the panel as flat as possible, supporting it in the middle, supporting it on the ends. But as you put it up, you know, and you're supporting it only from the top and from the bottom, it's going to bow a little bit. Yeah, that little bit of bow is going to stretch those pixels. And we didn't have any failures. I don't think we had any failures right away. Actually,
no, you fired. I remember that first time you test fired the test pattern. I was like, holy crap! Sorry to curse.
Yeah,
it worked. I was like, this is going to be insane.
Yeah,
this is like, you know.
When we
don't worry, you can say crap on this. Crap is an okay word. Crap is fine.
I was trying to keep it PG
because we're going to give Lee crap.
When we first put it up, it was amazing, because this was really probably only my second experience with FPP. I had used FPP to run the regular show before, but none of this was tested directly through X-Lights. I designed the whole thing, I programmed it, but I did not have an opportunity to test it until we built it. So this is like November. We are still assembling this thing, and I'm hoping to have it all up and running, you know, the day after Thanksgiving for our show opening. And I have not actually run it all together with all 32 with all 32, no, it was 10 panels, sorry, 10 with all 20 controllers, all 320 outputs. I've not actually checked to see if FPP can even support all of this. And this is running on like an older Pi, like a Pi 2, or maybe even like a 1B or something like that. And so this is pushing the limits of what we could do at that time with FPP, the channel output and the FSEQ size on the SD card. It was really pushing the limit. And I was just hoping and praying that, you know, it's all going to work. That, okay, I built this thing. Theoretically, yeah, we're within the limits, but none of this was tested before it was put into production. And the controllers that I used, so these were all AlphaPix controllers, and frankly, the reason for that was I got them all ready to run. Holiday Coro built me a 2 power supply enclosure separate from the 16 output controller, so I could actually have 4 power supplies per panel. So 2 power supplies per controller, 4 power supplies per panel with my power injection that I needed. They put it all together, so that was pretty handy. But there was no controller upload or controller config support in X-Lights or any of these controllers at that time. So all of this was done by hand with a spreadsheet and all of my network switches, because none of this stuff daisy chains. So I've got to have all of my individual cords going to my network switch, building my outdoor enclosures, making sure it all works. And it actually worked. When we fired it up and we could see the images on the screen, it all lined up perfectly. What you see is what you get. It matched my layout and my model, and it was amazing. I was very happy. We put a ton of work into building it and assembling it. It was very stressful. It was down to the wire, but it actually fired up and it worked. It worked for a few days, and then it.
I don't know if
rained.
I don't know if you're. Yeah, I don't know if your viewers know where Wichita is located in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, it's in Kansas. Obviously, it's Midwest. But our Novembers tend to be very mild. We've had many Thanksgivings in the 60s, sunny, beautiful, sunny, 50-degree days. Maybe wind is what you'll get, and we usually are very dry. Like this year for the illumination season, about 6.5 weeks, we've had maybe 3 days of like measurable precipitation. So we don't usually plan for rain in these deals.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we waterproof stuff, but it's almost, an afterthought. We don't put a ton of work into waterproofing. It's water resistant, and if it rains, we know that we're going to have maybe some issues that we have to go resolve, but we don't get a ton of snow. We don't get a ton of rain. So and
the orientation of the panels would leave it to be so it's up in the air, it's going to get wind.
Yeah.
It's not going to cool. It's going to dry very quickly.
We figured
everything that gets wet.
Yep, everything was going to dry. We put a lot of work. I shouldn't say a lot of work, but we thought about the rain from the controllers. So, they were all angled and they were in CT1500 cases. But this particular year that we put this thing up, I think it was within the first week, we had an ice storm.
Yeah, freezing rain.
We had freezing rain for like a solid day and a half, maybe 2 days. And
on Thanksgiving.
Yep,
Thanksgiving Day.
Right on Thanksgiving. And
opening that Friday after Thanksgiving.
I think we even we pushed back the opening.
Yeah, we did.
Of Illumination. We canceled the entire event, which this is a huge event for Wichita. I mean, opening day of Illuminations, we'll see 6, 7, even 8,000 people come out to this thing. And opening weekend, that's usually one of our busiest times. We'll see 15, 20,000 people within that first couple of days. We canceled Illuminations for, I think, 2 days or more. It wasn't just 1 day. It was like 2, maybe even 3 days. We canceled because the weather was so bad from that ice storm. And then when we finally reopened, after the sidewalks and everything else got cleared off, we had, probably 10% failures on the panels already within just a couple of days. The rain and the ice, I'm assuming the temperature change of getting really cold and then warming back up in the sun probably stretched out the strips, and we had massive failures immediately on the pixel strip, and it was a constant battle. Every single day we were out there with putting plywood out on the grass, getting a scissor lift out to this location, going up and down the panels. We would spend almost all day, every day, during the day, either attempting to repair strip.
Not completely unsuccessful either. We got it to a working order for a few of those nighttime viewings. Yeah, it was great.
We got it.
So your audience did get to see this thing.
Yes,
we showed a movie.
Absolutely.
The primary movie we showed was
we showed clips. We showed clips from Frozen.
That was right.
Yeah, because this was the year. It was the year that Frozen came out.
Yeah, Frozen had just come out.
Yeah, Frozen was super popular. We had clips from Frozen and a couple other little animations. We did some stuff from The Grinch and some of the Charlie Brown Christmas stuff. A couple other little Christmas classics that I'd done some sequencing to. And it looked really cool. When it worked, it was amazing.
Yeah, this is the part of the garden where there was no develop. Now it's fairly developed because they put a carousel house. There's sidewalks. And stuff. This was used to be a kind of not a
fairly
vacant,
open.
Yeah, and backdrop by trees, very dark. So from just standing on the walkway, it looked like a drive-in movie.
It was
awesome.
The distance from the screen to the viewers was a solid like 40 or 50 feet. So this is back quite a ways. And
so it probably had great resolution.
Oh, yeah.
It looked fantastic.
It looked phenomenal. I mean, the brightness from all of those 50/50 LEDs and the distance away, like you could not tell that it wasn't a reasonably high resolution screen. You could read the text great. You could see, the video on it looked phenomenal.
It was pretty cool.
When it was working correctly, it was very impressive, but it took a shit ton of work every day to repair the pixels that were failing. And that was it. I mean, the structure held up great. It was, it was a pain in the butt to install and take down, but it held up. The pixels though, and the software controllers, that was all great. But the strip, when people talk about hating strip and replacing 200 feet of strip, I wasted 3,000 or 4,000 pixels because I started off a strip and I'm converting to bullet nodes. They know no pain like having 57,000 pixels installed on a solid metal substrate, and the entire thing, we put it up that 1 year. It has never been up again.
That's another epic fail. We thought we were going to keep it, so I spent the better part of a week building this storage framework out of wood, and we're going to make it so it doesn't rub against each other. Each panel is going to have its own slot. And Lord, I mean, that thing, you slid the panels in, and that the stuff that was covering the pixels was just almost like silicone you would use to like fix a cheap fix on your bathtub or something. It just degraded, it just crumbled, it fell apart, you couldn't even touch it, and it would just rub right off.
That was the worst part, is we got the pixel strip that had it wasn't a silicone tube, it was like a silicone coating. It was rounded, it was kind of a half dome covering, and that's
like molded.
Yeah, that stuff is so fragile. I mean, you can scratch it off with your fingernail. And I will say, compliments to Ray Wu, where I got all this stuff from, is he made it right for us on the pixel strip, because the description of the product at that time did not match the durability and kind of the application use case that we put it in. It should have performed a lot better. I think, in my opinion, there was a legitimate manufacturing problem with this particular batch, because I've seen coated strip now that has that silicone coating on it, and it is much more durable than what we had at that time. So I think this was, again, some of the early days of the pixel strip, and we ordered a lot of it. It was custom length. And we replaced it later with some jacketed that has the full plastic jacket strip for some different applications. And that strip has held up a lot better. It still, has issues, and I still don't like strip, but the fully enclosed jacket has been better than the silicone coated, just the, poured on top of the PCB.
Yeah, even if it would have gone perfectly, the storage and unremoving it the next year, it would have completely, a third of it would have been trash. You couldn't, there's no way, because you can't stack it because it's too heavy. You can't really lay it up against anything because it's too tall. So the only way I did it was like, I'm going to lay it on its side and these little sleeves, and you couldn't, there's just no way to prevent it from rubbing the strip. It's just virtually impossible to store. So that's another one that we didn't
because the panels, even, taking 4 people to carry it around.
Oh yeah.
Were just too heavy.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, terrible.
How many total hours would you say, ballpark, would you say you put into this thing?
So just attaching the strip to the panels, we had a volunteer group. I think in one of the pictures you can see, we had a volunteer group of probably 15 or more. And it was not just one day. I think we had probably 2 days, maybe even 3 days. So we'll say it's 2 days, and they worked at least 4 or 5 hours. So, 15, there's
100 hours.
Yeah, there's probably 75. There's probably 150 man hours just in attaching the strip to the panels and doing the zip ties. So that's 150 hours right there. And then I had a friend of mine build all of the framework, and he and his guys, it took them, probably a month to build all that. They made jigs and all this stuff so that all the metal was perfectly straight, because they had to weld it in a particular order so it wouldn't heat up and warp and everything. So there's probably another 100 man hours just in the construction of the structure, and they painted it. Oh, by the way, that was all painted black.
That was nice.
So it wasn't going to rust or anything.
Yeah, so it wasn't going to rust. It's painted, built. So 100 plus hours in that, and then all of the work of attaching the pigtails. There's 320 pigtails that had to be attached on that thing. That took probably 10 minutes or so a piece. So there's another there's another 20 plus hours right there. So I would say there's at least, at an absolute minimum, there's probably 400 man hours of labor to build, and just to build it, not even assemble it. It took another.
I just had a bad memory of the assembly. We'll get to that.
Yeah, it took another, probably 2 days with 4 or 5 people working a full day. So 580. So there's probably another 40. There's probably another 100. It's probably 600 man hours, just ballparking it. Probably 600 man hours minimum for construction, assembly, transport. And you couldn't have done this without like a trailer. I had my 30-foot gooseneck trailer at the time that I loaded all this stuff up onto. And, if you didn't have a place to store it, there's no way you were going to leave this out where it was at. So, yeah, probably 500-600 man hours to put it all together.
So to not forget what you just said here, Mike, what does it look like? Lee's not a very big guy. So
No.
what does it look like seeing him driving a big enough truck to pull a 30-foot gooseneck trailer?
Yeah.
He's I'm about 6'3", 265, so I've got Lee in spades and weight, and not so much height. He's actually taller than he looks, but yeah, he's kind of one of those wiry guys, I think it's because he probably was always tiny as a teen and a young man, so he didn't act like anything's heavy. So I'll complain like, oh, this is heavy, and he'll be hoisting with one arm and holding like a football and running down. So he compensates very well. But it is interesting. Yeah, I never really knew a lot about large machining or drilling or well digging or thermo wells until I met Lee. So he packs a punch in his small frame. I'll tell you that.
For some reason, I just get this picture of like seeing my wife on the tractor. It's an odd thing to see. It doesn't fit.
In my previous day job, I ran a drilling company, and I drove a 1-ton dually crew cab long bed truck with a 32-foot gooseneck. I've got a CDL. So, I mean, I've hauled around a lot of heavy machinery for years. And yeah, I've had a lot of equipment and got a lot of experience with heavy machinery. So, not a lot of techie guys, I think, could say that, but I've done a lot of different things in my day. So.
I'm kind of the ground guy. Lee goes up in the basket. Lee goes up in the tree. Lee climbs up on the frame. I'm kind of a ground guy for Lee. I do all the ground operation.
See, this is why it's not fair. I really want this opportunity to make fun of Lee for something, but it's because I'm really good at building stuff. I got tractors, equipment. I got big facilities. I mean, I can build anything. But when it comes to the techie side, I have to call people like Lee for help. And now I'm learning this crap that he can do both sides of this. Mm-hmm. The side that I like to claim I'm good at, and the side that we all know he's good at. This isn't fair.
This fits in perfectly with the professional triers, because I will say my biggest flaw is I will not say no. If somebody says, hey, do you think we can do that? Or what about this? What about that? I'll scratch my chin for a little bit and be like, yeah, I bet we can do that. Having never done it before, I will think through it and in 5 or 10 minutes be like, yeah, I think I know how to do that. But the problem is sometimes you bite off more than you can chew. And that's exactly what happened with this panel project. I had built matrices. We built a big ground matrix, and that looked badass, and people loved it. Before that one, I had a failure. I had a fail ground matrix, and then I had a success ground matrix. And then I was like, well, I've learned something from the fail ground matrix. The good ground matrix was fine. Let's turn this vertical. Let's make this giant. We're going to, do 10 times the number of pixels. We had a successful 5,000 pixel matrix. We're going to go to 50,000. So, go big or go home, right? And I said, well, it's the same thing, just bigger. So we'll do this, and we'll have this plan, and we'll sub these different parts of it out. And until you actually go through all of the motions, and something like this, as far as I had known, hadn't been done at this scale and in the DIY space. And so there wasn't a lot of other information. I wasn't copying somebody else's design. It was taking concepts from other things and just scaling it up. And there are, like a lot of projects, the devil is in the details. And I learned so much about strip and large number of controller configurations and power injection throughout this process that had I had to do it all over again, number one, I would never use strip. And number two, I would respect the weight and the size of these props a lot more. And I think that really hits to the heart of a lot of these fails and Darwin Awards is, people see these mega trees. Mega tree is a great example because it's a fairly common prop, and everybody builds a mega tree. People see these mega tree and they're like, oh, well, that 12-foot mega tree is awesome. Oh, that 16-foot mega tree is awesome. Oh, look, somebody took a telephone pole and built a 30-foot mega tree. Well, I'm going to build a 110-foot mega tree. And you know what? If you're not a licensed engineer and have done this before and understand and respect the differences that come with the scale of some of this stuff, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And that's exactly what I did. I did not respect the weight and the size and the fragility of the strip when I decided to take on this project. And it just, really, it was a huge learning experience. It really opened my eyes for some of the problems to look out for in the future.
I thought we were going to make fun of him.
Oh, I want to. I'm looking for every opportunity I can.
This Illumination event was good before Lee came on. It's become a standard in the Midwest, 3rd rated outdoor light show by Better Homes and Gardens magazine in the country, for whatever that's worth. And when this thing first popped off, for those first about 36 hours, I mean, he was just a god among men. And there's a lot of volunteers and professional volunteers that work out there. I work out there with him during Illumination's time as his coworker and partner. And his reputation went from, somewhere from Willy Wonka to, the guy behind the curtain in Wizard of Oz, because, the emperor kind of had no clothes there for a minute. And it wasn't his fault. I will say this, if we had had this year's weather, that thing might have lasted the entire season. But in the problem with the fails too, at first it was like 1 pixel strip would kind of be blinking, which obviously when you're showing a movie and the one right at the 50-yard line is futzing out a little bit, it really shows hard. Then we were getting full on blackout squares that were just completely dark. And then that was kind of affecting it. And then it just, and it was like the daily talk was, is the movie going? Is the screen up? I mean, the screen became this whole thing. You have this beautiful, beautiful garden, trees at night, and just incredible beauty. And the screen became like the
sore thumb.
It was a constant talk about. And now, Lee took it well. Lee and I weren't really great friends then. I mean, we became good friends through time and just through liking each other. But back then, I was kind of like, oh boy, this guy's really he's really the chair.
So, Mike, was there at least somebody that's like the president of the garden or something like that came to you guys, came to Lee and goes, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Please,
yeah. Something like that at least happened.
The cash outlay that he had to ask for to purchase the hardware and purchase the lights and do all the work and do all that, not to mention pay me to help him build it. That didn't come cheaply or easily. And the payoff would say was, the return on investment, the ROI was not the best.
No, not there. Oh,
no. But we have a good boss. The guy that runs it's a pretty laid back guy. And, he's kind of the, devil may care kind of attitude guy. So ultimately the gardens, they do very well. This year we just did 90,000 for the whole Christmas season. So it's one of their biggest money makers. So, it's all a distant memory at this point. But yeah, in the moment, yes, he was being questioned and constantly being looked down.
Obviously, all turned out well because we all know Lee and his greatness in the amazing stuff that he does. I was blessed this year to get down to Botanical and see the show, and Lee walked around and showed me a bunch of stuff with it. It is absolutely amazing, and it's so hard to make fun of him. Because in this whole structure, in this whole thing, the only thing that I could even say, hindsight's 2020, the only things that I can fault him for in any of this, one is using the strips, which, like you said, it was years ago. You didn't really know any better. Mm-hmm. So we were all learning as we went, and your failure hopefully helped many people learn, don't use those strips. But also, maybe the steel structure, and you're underestimating
that's
how heavy and how difficult this was going to be.
Oh my gosh.
And I tell people this all the time. I like to proclaim myself as being kind of a mega tree construction expert. And I tell people this all the time. It is not, okay, if I'm going to go twice as tall, then I need to go twice as strong. No, it doesn't work that way. That's not how engineering works in this. If you go twice as tall, you need to go 4 times as strong. And it's an exponential, right? So, let's just say if I've got a strength rating of 1 to go 10 foot, I need a strength rating of 4 to go to 20 foot, probably a strength rating of 20 to get to 40 foot.
That's exactly
it is exponentially bigger. And I would say you probably underestimated what was going to happen to that steel as it got that big.
Absolutely. That is the biggest issue with a lot of this stuff is because it's DIY, because it's hobbyist, there's a lot of armchair engineering and kind of rules of thumb and things that people they think linearly. They're like, okay, well, if I do 2 times the lights, I need 2 times the controllers, it's going to cost me twice as much. Okay, that may be true. But when you start building something, building a structure that has weight and has, wind
over
resistance.
a ton. It was over a ton, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just for the screen was over a ton.
Yep. When you start
a ton to hang lights that weigh 12 ounces.
Yeah. When you start building this stuff, it's a totally different ball game, and there's factors that come into play that you might not have considered. And with the size of our displays, and I say this for a lot of people, I mean, there's residential displays that are just getting insane, and for the size of this stuff, we really need to start taking a harder and closer look at some of these other factors like weight and wind and just safety too. I mean, this thing, if one of these panels would have fallen while we were putting it up, it would have killed somebody. I mean, there's no
just a
question.
single panel would have killed.
A single panel, 20 plus feet up in the air that weighs several hundred pounds would have killed you. And
you can't see on that picture, Vinny, because you had to put cross braces like a couple different places on the back to knit all the panels together. So what they had to do on that whole construction is they would lay the screen completely down, face down, support it with tulip crates, because this is the garden. We use tulip crates, plastic tulip crates
for
stacked.
Everything.
And you have to slide on your back, and someone's putting the brace through, and you have a socket. You're trying to push the bolts through. I mean, I was just going like, if this crate breaks, I'm going to be pinned to the ground. There's like 4 already panels sealed together, or already knitted together here. I mean, I'm going to be asphyxiated on the grass. And it's claustrophobic and intense. And I mean, these guys did a great job of welding and milling, but the bolts, like IKEA furniture sometimes don't always match up a little bit. So you're down there fiddling, and it was claustrophobic and kind of intense, really.
Oh man, I can only imagine. But and I say this, like I said, I will be very clear that I say this in hindsight 2020 of like, you did that wrong. I wouldn't have done it any different. I can't look at the structure and say, putting me in those shoes at that time, I cannot say I would have done it differently.
That initial payoff was incredible. We put all that work in. I was like, yeah, I hope this is even decent. And he turned it on. The test pattern came on. I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And that kind of got dark. We fired up the movie. I was like, that is really cool. I go, this is going to be insane. So you kind of forget all the hard work and kind of silliness and over engineering and, imagination that Lee put into it, because it's like, wow, he really pulled this off. This is amazing thing. And it just went crashing down almost as quickly as it succeeded. But it did succeed,
It succeeded for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those were probably the coolest couple days ever.
Oh, it was great. Something I'd never seen before. I was blown away. There were a lot of people. The first people that got to see it were completely blown away. I think word got out how great it was, and it did not.
Yeah.
The word of mouth got around, and they did not get the full blast that the first initial visitors got. I'm telling
you.
Well, I want to give you the opportunity to tease me back a little bit. That's the only way to be fair. And about the best story that I guess I would have that I will give you the opportunity to tease me for was, I showed you the picture of I had the first mega tree I ever had, which was strip lighting as well. And I did the same thing. I did aluminum square tubing, and it was screwed down, holes screwed through them into 2x4s that then braced them at the bottom, at the top, and I think a couple points in the middle. So it kept its rigidity, and I kept it built together the whole time. Like, it never came back apart. It was stored as one unit, and it was lightweight, and it was great. Except what I didn't tell you was that was the second version of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
The first version was built out of, I was like, you know what? There's enough of these things. There's enough poles. It's going to be fine. So I just bought cheap EMT. And then I put them together with couplers. And I think it lasted about a week before I said, this is a nightmare. The couplers, you can't keep it from turning in the couplers. And so, you'd have the strip laying straight, and then something would happen, the whole tree would move a little bit, and then those pipes would twist a little bit. So now all of a sudden your strip is off and it's angled. And then once it turns like that, then it breaks the solder joints. And it was terrible. I think I took it down after a week, through all that, just trashed it all and redid it with square aluminum.
Yep.
If we had the top of that screen covered with some like a makeshift umbrella or canopy, you think it would have saved it?
I don't know, because I think that's
what I was thinking about. If it was just the rain, if we could have just mitigated somehow the moisture flowing down into the top.
I don't know if it was so much the moisture as the thermal expansion and contraction, because we would have it work at night. And then during the day, you would test it and you'd be like, holy shit, what the hell happened? There's like errors all over the place. And then it's like it would expand and contract and expand and contract. And problems would fix themselves as the temperature changed. And that was the most frustrating thing to me, is because
that black framing would get hot in the sun.
Exactly.
If they got direct sunlight, you would touch it, it'd be very warm.
And I could not believe that, I figured, I was thinking in my head, like, I understand expansion and contraction a little bit. Surely, if that strip is well attached to the substrate, and it's, got the double-sided sticky tape, and we zip tied it, and it's straight, surely those things are going to expand and contract at a reasonable enough rate that it's not going to break things. But it broke things all the time, and that was just the worst. So.
Today we realized it's not fixable.
Right. Oh,
like we can't go on and cut 30 zip ties off, and we can't get on another lift for another. I mean, you just couldn't do it. It would have been.
Mike, expand on that story for me. Tell me about the day when. And this episode is we're already pushing our limit. I wanted to keep these around a half hour. But this conversation is going smoothly, and I want to keep it going. So we're going to break our own time limit. Mike, tell me that story of the day when you decided we're getting rid of this thing. You know what? We've tried. It's not worth it anymore. Get rid of it.
It's almost like, a marriage that's failing, and you put all this work and time in it, and you just want it to work so bad. And, if I just do this, if I just change this, I just do this. And obviously there's a lot, like I said, or I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of financial pressure and performance pressure and Lee's reputational pressure. And I'm just a jag. I'm just a guy. I'm very good construction wise. I'm very good mechanically. I don't know much about, EMTs and EFTs and PDFs and all this stuff you guys talk about all the time. I don't get in the devil in the details. I know he's a very capable guy. So that's that first weekend, and it's already a wash because the weather went bad. Then, like I said, you see a little spritz here and there, and then a little fuzziness, and then it's blinking, and then I think we actually ran it for a while just to have it running, because it just is just like, what, the Titanic's going to sink anyway. You might as well get the last, couple miles out of it. But I think it was after about that first week where it was like, we can't fix it. It's just not going to be fixed. And he came to grips with it. He was Lee's an emotional guy. I mean, he took a lot of pride in what he did, and I felt bad for him. Like I said, we weren't super close to him like we are now. And so I was just, just trying to be there for him and support him. But the day we realized that it just wasn't going to happen was actually depressing, because we really put a lot of work into that thing, and it would have worked so well. And it was always, it's like the guy in high school that, if the coach would have put me in. It was just kind of like, if only it hadn't been icy, or if only it hadn't done this, and the temperature, and this is, it'll be okay. And it just, I think that day was, I don't know. I'd say it was I think we gave it about 2 weeks.
Yeah. After you get it totally working, and then you realize you're going to keep fighting the same type of problem, and you realize that there's not a good solution.
And it sat dark for like the last 3 weeks of the event. I mean, literally just sat there. Couldn't take it down because it would take another, week and a half to take it down. So it sat there upright, black, kind of like the monolith from 2001, just silently in the dark, doing nothing, just sitting there. People asking what it was. And it was, I think I kind of just blocked it out.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about it until today. Lee said, hey, I'm doing a podcast about the screen. I was like, oh boy, I completely forgot about that.
We did take one panel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is cool. We did repurpose the panel.
Yep. We took one panel and redid it in the jacketed strip and
put it
horizontally and used it as a much wider, not as tall screen for some singing faces for a Halloween show. And that actually worked pretty darn well for the one panel. And since it was all at ground level, if there was an issue with anything, we could actually, touch it and get to it without a lift or anything. And so that worked out pretty well. But even that still had an issue with like just one strip, but one out of 32. And thankfully, I think it was like either the bottom or the second from the bottom. So I could just turn off those two bottom rows and it didn't, 99% of people didn't even know that anything was going on. But
Wow.
We did reuse one panel, not this past Halloween, but in Halloween 2018. And it turned out pretty cool. People liked it. So the structure, we still have the structure. We've not scrapped it or anything, but I haven't yet thought of a good use for it just because it was designed for strip and I am never putting strip back on it. So unless I can figure out, some way to attach like square nodes or bullets or something to it and do something with it, it's going to sit until I come up with a better idea.
Yeah, because the net show that has the ground lights, those things get wet, and we've had some problems with what you call it, egress and ingress. Sorry, water. Egress, not egress. Egress. Like I said, water, not so technical.
Water ingress.
But this has been on the ground for almost 8 years, and you have maybe 12 bulbs that have started to fail. I mean, it's not really that bad.
We've got a big Pixabulb Matrix C9 strawberry style, and over time water gets into those things and they start to fail.
So in your head you're like, oh, if you just lifted that off the ground and just put it vertical, hey, we'll be really cooking with something here. But the utter immovability of the panels too, I know you're on the pass. I'll just inject this real quick. So we're trying to move them out of this area, and the garden is not where it was located, is not made for big machinery or trucks to back in. So we're using these Taylor done like gardener's carts, little light duty gardener's kind of flatbed carts. And we had some volunteers or some temporary guys come help us. And I had to take it out of a gate and kind of go around these trash cans and these pillars and these trees. Well, I didn't see this light pole. I literally almost cut this guy in half because it was kind of at a 45 off the edge of the thing. It was too long to store all the way on the bed. So we had to like lay it across the top of the back of this little gardener's truck trailer thing. And it hit a signpost or something. The guy was standing in the bed, and it's like the scene in Jaws when Richard Dreyfuss gets almost ripped in half by the shark pulling on the rope because it like almost cut him in half. So these things are not movable. They're not easy to move. It's just too funny that we even got that
it's
far.
They're too big. Like you really have to, when you start scaling things up, you have to remember as you scale up the prop, people don't just get bigger when they need to work with bigger things. So you have to think about how to make it manageable by hand, or what kind of heavy equipment is it going to take to move this stuff in and out? Because the weights and the distances, like again, going back to working on it, when we laid that one down horizontally on the ground, you could get to everything. And so if you had a problem, you could just take off one strip and replace it. But when it's 21 feet in the air, you're talking about it's on the grass, so you can't just drive a lift out there. You have to put down, plywood or Alternamats or something so that you can actually drive your scissor lift out onto it and then go up there. If it's windy, the whole thing's shaking and the screen's shaking. And
these things are all put in the ground with ground anchors, those little glorified like things you put your dog chain on in the backyard. And I was always like, the dirt's going to hold this?
Well, we use like 40-inch earth anchor. I mean, they're,
I understand that.
5-6 inch diameter,
still
50 inches long. So
just spade anchors?
What's that?
I want to tease you so bad for you. The spade anchors, where it's basically just a long pole with a big flat disc.
Yeah, well, it's got the
So it digs itself, but at the end of the day, it's just a flat disc that's holding it. I want to smack you so hard for using those.
They were screwed in. I mean, it took It took probably 20 minutes.
30 minutes to put one in.
20 or 30
just to screw it in.
You've got like a 6-foot, what do you call it? Breaker bar thing.
Yeah.
6-foot breaker bar in that eyelet. I mean, it's all that you've got, like spinning it around.
Lee, no. Throw those away. Throw those away right now.
Why?
I'm going to tell you this. Okay. I'm going to call them the best. I don't know if they're the best. They're the best in my opinion. I don't know. These are people that earth anchors is what they do. A company called American Earth Anchors. And they make earth anchors and they design them. They are the bigwigs in this industry for earth anchors. I mean, they custom make the earth anchors that hold 500-foot towers. You know, they make those anchors. This is all they do. I will tell you this, on their residential division, they have stopped selling those spade anchors. They've thrown them, they don't carry them anymore because there are alternatives that are stronger, faster, easier, better in every way.
Do tell.
Yeah, I'm excited.
They are better in every way, shape, and form. But we'll discuss that off the air.
All right.
I can't give away too much in every one episode.
No, I understand. Got to keep that content.
Well, you know, that might be a good episode for one of our sister shows for Hot or Not with Keith.
There you go.
Tech Talk and, you know, that type of stuff. I should get on with him and talk earth anchors. We have a type of anchor that I used on this commercial tree. This one was a 24-foot, not a mega tree. This is a commercial grade. I mean, so it looks like a real tree, you know, with all the lighting and stuff, and huge metal exoskeleton and, you know, big things. The whole thing is held in with 3 anchors. And those all go into the ground with a drill. They come out of the ground with a drill. Mm-hmm. It takes 10 seconds to put each one in. That's it.
I like
that
it.
Easy. It's great. They're fantastic. And then, you know, I had people that were like, really, is this going to hold? And I assembled the exoskeleton, and then I brought those same guys over and said, feel this thing. And we had 3 or 4 guys on that skeleton just going, and no, you can't get the thing to budge a bit, especially once then the ground freezes and it really secures those anchors in. Oh, it's not going anywhere. So, anywho. All right. Last chance, guys. Anything else?
I'm trying to think. Man,
I covered a lot of content.
Yeah, that's the biggest. We had that was the biggest fail for sure. We've had some minor fails that have been learning experiences and kind of turned them into successes.
Yeah, nothing that this. It's just it was just laborious. Yeah. I mean, most of the lights we do, even the nets we lay out in the Meadow Show with the 5,000 individual pixels. It's cumbersome, but it's not heavy. 2 guys can lay it out in an afternoon, not even 3 hours. I mean, just to carry a panel 50 yards was enough to knock you out for a day. I mean, it was just unbelievably cumbersome. It just can't even.
And you know, those little mistakes are those little ones that it doesn't matter how good we get at this. We still make those dumb little mistakes. This year, I had to laugh so hard at her. This year, Maggie's gotten really good. I taught her how to replace pixels with Scotch locks. And
I know all about that. That's my specialty.
What's her name again?
She's been great. I send her out, you know, I'm out doing one thing and she's over fixing pixels with Scotch locks. It's great. And we had a matrix that, I don't know, 1,200 pixel matrix, something like that. You know what, 8x4, whatever size it is. And all the pixels are exposed at the back. And we turned it on for the first time of the year and turned it all on white and see all the pixels that went bad over the summer, over the year. And so she goes, there's probably 6, give or take, that need fixed. So she goes in there and she goes to town and she's at it for a little while and she replaces it all and she comes over. Okay, all done. Great. Why aren't any of them turning on? All the ones that you've just fixed. She didn't pay attention to the fact that she replaced them and then all of a sudden all the ones that she fixed didn't turn on. Didn't occur to her. Every single one that she replaced, she put on backwards. So right, the pixels have a direction. They have to flow in a direction. And she put them in the wrong direction. Every single one of them. So And I'm like, even if you didn't pay attention, you should have at least statistically
Yeah.
gotten half of them right. But every single one of them was wrong.
Oh, man.
So it doesn't matter. We all make these mistakes. But, you know, we've brought Lee on this show to make fun of him because we all respect and quite honestly are jealous of him. He is absolutely one of the greatest minds in this hobby, and that is why we're going to make fun of him. I will never, ever tease someone and give them a Darwin Award when they did something dumb and they did it for their first time. Other than there are some of these Mega Tree failures that we have seen, people that didn't know what they were doing, did not want to listen to advice,
Yeah.
and they thought they knew better, and they built a Mega Tree that was never going to work. Never day one. It never, ever was going to have worked.
Mm.
So those are people but even in those people, I'm not going to tease them. I'm not going to make fun of them. I'm just going to say, look, here's how to do it right. Just do it right, and you're fine. Go on. Lee is in a different situation. He's a big wig. We can make fun of him. He's got big boy pants. So thank you guys very much for joining me. This has been a fun episode. I hoped all the listeners get to learn something as well as get to realize that, you know what, even the people, the greats, the Greek gods of this hobby
You gotta
make these mistakes. Well, now that I've found out that you've got a CDL and you drive big trucks with big old trailers on it too, I mean, you kind of got a Hercules thing going on. You got a Hercules and a Napoleon body.
He does.
No, he's not that little. He's not that little. He's just a
He's
adorable
slight.
little guy.
Not little. He's slight.
I like
jealous of his waistline.
I like the term that he's wiry.
Yeah, he's very wiry. Yeah, his strength to weight ratio is very high.
Awesome. Well, guys, take care. I am going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And stay tuned. We will have more of these fun episodes later. Take care.